Buenas noches. ¿Estás listo para los sueños? Are you ready for the dreams, my friend? Today we're talking about dreams. Dreams are a fantastic way for us to deepen our understanding and our awareness of ourselves and who we are, where we're at, what we're going through, and potentially even what we might be going through in the near future. This section has its roots in really what became a bit of a family practice of having dreams, and at the dinner table or just sitting around the house sharing and talking about what dreams we had that week or that night before, and trying to figure out and break down, like, what is this dream telling us, what is it saying, what is it reflecting, what is it symbolizing. And I can thank my dad for this, because he said, up into his early 30s he really didn't have any dreams, and then suddenly he just started dreaming. And he's a really grounded, practical dude, and he kind of was just wondering, well, why am I all of a sudden dreaming? Where is this coming from? And what kind of, what could they mean? What kind of practical value does this have? And apparently that really began his sort of spiritual journey with working with dreams. My mom also has had quite a few of her own dreams, sometimes getting information about something that was going to happen, or having dreams about people who have crossed over. So she's had a very interesting spirit connection to her dreams as well. So in a way, the dreaming thing is kind of in the family. And at some point, it just became a thing where we would talk about the dreams we were having, and what was coming up and why. And it still continues to be, to this day, a reflective tool to kind of try and understand more about where we're at, and to kind of extract information and guidance and wisdom that can help us all grow on our path of personal growth and on our spiritual journey. So it's a fascinating topic that we certainly won't be able to cover everything or exhaust all the information here, but I want to introduce you to it. So like I mentioned in some of the other chapters, this is a chapter that goes pretty deep in the Awakening Soul Force book, and I collaborated on this chapter with my dad to help us. We just kind of assembled what we felt like were very universal symbols or themes, which was a challenging thing to do, because really, when it comes to dreams, it's a very subjective experience, and so much of breaking down the symbolism comes down to, what is your relationship to the symbol? Meaning, for example, if I dream about an eagle in my dreams, well, eagles, we could say, kind of have like a general theme or message or medicine. If we just think about the first few words that come to mind when we think of eagle, we might think of a regal bird. We think of a big, powerful animal, a bird of prey. It flies. So there's like these spiritual sort of tones to the eagle itself. But for me specifically, the eagle is a power animal that I was introduced to and have been working with since my shamanic drum journey experience years ago. So that has a very particular meaning to me, and a very specific relationship. So if I dream about an eagle, it might mean something different to me, depending on the context of the dream, than maybe if you had a dream about the eagle. And this same can be said for literally just about everything. With that being said, there's kind of a reason in psychology and like in tarot and esoterics, there's certain themes that kind of come up. For example, water very often has to do with creativity and emotions. That's something that translates in the dreams. That's something that feels like a universal symbol. When we see fire, that's something that can make us think of anger, but also passion, and also the transformative power of spirit. Those are themes that we can see in psychology. I mentioned tarot because I also use tarot, and then the dream world. So there's some things there that are very similar. Air. Well, what does air have to do with? Air has to do with our thoughts and the intellect, right? And the higher mind. And earth. What about the earth? Well, earth has to do with practical things, the physical world, material stuff. So very simply, let's just break those few things down. If we start to look at our dreams in the context of what's going on, if we have a dream about we're in a little dinghy boat and the ocean is calm, and then all of a sudden we hear a noise and a big tidal wave comes, and we kind of get swamped by this tsunami of a tidal wave, and the end of the dream is we wake up, we pop up, and it's calm again, and we're not in the boat, we're out of the boat, but we're just kind of wading in the water, but we're safe. Well, that could be a really interesting symbolic dream. about some sort of a big emotional event that's going to come and overwhelm us, toss us out of our boat. But when it passes, we're still in the calm water and we're actually able to tread water and we're safe. That's conveying something really meaningful. And so it could be priming us for something that's coming in our lives, or it might be indicative of something that we're going through. It might be the little nugget that we need to trust that this tidal wave that we're feeling right now, this tidal wave of emotion, we're feeling overwhelmed by big emotions. So the ocean very often represents that. And that it might be that little message we need to say, okay, I'm just gonna relax. Because when this thing passes, yeah, I'm not gonna be in my boat anymore. So there's something about the vessel and the vehicle that we're in is gonna shift or change. But I'm also safe and it's calm again. So it's gonna pass. There is gonna be a change. Something about the vessel through which I'm floating on will be removed, you know. So it could be like it could be something that's a coping mechanism or something, right? Something that's trying to keep us afloat that gets pulled away, but at the end of the day, we're able to kind of tread water and we're safe just being ourselves in that emotion. So that's kind of an example of how the symbolism in a dream might work, and as it relates to water. So you know, when you think about your dreams, don't always go to physically like the reality of what it is. So that dream should not discourage you from going out and paddleboarding or going and doing ocean kayaking or swimming in the ocean with your friends, because you're like, oh my God, I had this dream and there was a tidal wave and it's going to be different for everybody. More often than not, our dreams are symbols and our metaphors, sort of little short stories and allegories that are just going to reflect something back to us. With that being said, like I said, my mom has had, you know, visitation dreams from people who have crossed over. She's had some dreams about things that were going to happen. For me, I get a lot of psychic dreams where I'm getting something that's like really happening, but those are few and far between. They happen much more regularly, and I've become much more connected to when they come through. With that being said, 8, 9 times out of 10, the dreams that I'm having are symbolic representations of something that's going on. So you're gonna have to figure this out for yourself, you know, as far as what dreams are speaking what to you. More often than not, we're not gonna take it physically at face value. We're not gonna take it literally, because that's the beauty of getting into the unconscious world, getting into the dream world, is we're now swimming in the realm of the abstract. We're learning how to speak the language of energy and emotions and thoughts outside of the constructs and confines of the physical material reality that we're engaged with on the day-to-day. So really, a lot of times what we're seeing in our dreams are just physical manifestations or representations of what's happening energetically or spiritually or emotionally or intellectually inside of us. Now, if we really want to like take that to the next level, well, so is the physical world that we're creating. This dense material reality is really a reflection of those things, but we're growing in our awareness and our ability to sort of merge those things. So the dream world is a great place to deepen our relationship to subtle body, to energy, to consciousness, and start to understand it more. So let's talk about some other maybe some basic dream symbols, some things that I think might be helpful for you. Again, if you want to do the deep dive, start having your own dreams, developing your own language, pick up Awakening Soul Force, and maybe this will give you a baseline of symbols to start to work with. But let's talk about some other symbols that might be helpful for you right now. So let's talk about day versus night dreams. Super simple symbolism here. Well, daytime, what happens in the daytime? Sun's out, we can see everything clearly. A lot of times, dreams that are taking place in the daytime have to do with things that are in our conscious mind, things that are in our awareness, or things that we're seeing a little bit more clearly. So this could be reflective of things that we actually do have a pretty good conscious awareness of, things that are a little closer to our conscious mind, because it's right out there where we can see it, right? Daytime, sun is shining, there's clarity. Again, we can see into every little nook and cranny. We can see the details of what's going on. So that's something to take away just from the environment of the dream. If it's a daytime dream, it's something that's probably a little closer to our conscious thought. Now we get into nighttime dreams. The other thing I'll say is it could also be ideas, dreams, and aspirations, like sort of in a positive sense. That's another thing I would look at. It's like, because, you know, we're dealing with daytime clarity, seeing things, the light, enlightenment. This could be more positive visioning too that might be coming through. Then let's look at the other side, nighttime dreams. Well, what could nighttime dreams represent? Well, often nighttime dreams have to do with things that are happening in the unconscious, or the things that we're not seeing quite as clearly, because what happens when the sun goes down, it becomes nighttime. We have the light of the moon. That's about as much as we get. We get the light of the stars. Yeah, we have city lights and stuff like that, but things, we can't see the details as much, right? It's darker, so it might be unconscious. It might be something that's beneath the surface of our conscious mind. These might be unconscious fears or insecurities, thoughts. They could still be positive things that are now below the surface, though. But we're looking at stuff that's not quite into our conscious awareness yet. So these could be things that are wanting to emerge, that are about to emerge, awareness and ideas and understandings that are sort of coming to the surface. It can also deal with fears. Nighttime dreams, darkness can deal with things that maybe we have fears about, things that we worry about, things that we have insecurities about. So much of that, understanding what it means, has to do with the context of what's going on in the dream, and then being able to look at your life and say, oh, well, what's happening? For example, you might have a reoccurring dream where you're constantly running away from bad guys, and it shows up in different ways. One day you're driving a car away from people, and then the next day you're riding a bicycle, and the next time you're running away from them. The next time you're in a canoe and you're paddling down the river at nighttime trying to get away. Well, the common thread there is that we're running away from bad things. We're running away from something. And it's just we think that they're bad guys or bad people. But what we really got to look at is, well, what are we running away from? And it's shown up in all these different ways. So we're in the canoe, right? And we're paddling away from it. We're running from it. We're driving our car from it. We're riding our bike from it. We're constantly like running from something and trying to escape it. All these different ways. So then if somebody was having a reoccurring dream like this, I would just ask, well, what do you feel like is chasing you? What do you feel like no matter what you do, you feel like you're running from something? Well, what's the something? And only you can answer that question. It might be a sense of failure. It might be a sense of not feeling safe. That's a general feeling that could actually have a really big impact on every single relationship in our lives, and everything that we're doing is just this underlying sort of consistent sense of like, I'm just not safe. I got to run. I got to move. Identifying that could be really, really helpful, right? And bringing that into our conscious awareness can really liberate us from something that may not be, the fear may be real, and the insecurity and the sense of that may be very real, and it may be justified. At the same time, if we understand, like, oh, wow, I need to understand and work with this feeling and understand where it's coming from and why. Well, and now how do I integrate it? How do I understand it so that I don't feel like I'm constantly running away from something, that I don't constantly feel like I'm unsafe, even in situations where I'm clearly very safe. So as you can see, this is a dream like that could be a very enlightening a journey. So these are very simple symbols that we're talking about that really can be very powerful in unlocking understandings about ourselves and the way in which we move through the world. Let's talk about some other symbols. Oh, people. Obviously, we're going to dream about people. This is a really important one, so we'll put this out there. There's a rule of thumb that my dad came up with, and I still use it. And I use it for a lot of the symbolism, and I use it even in my readings when I get some symbolism that might come in with a sense, or maybe I'm just getting visuals. And the first thing I do is I just kind of ask, all right, what are my first impressions? What are the first few things? My dad says, what are the first three things that you would use to describe whatever the symbol is? In this case, of people. So people in dreams very often are aspects of ourselves that are being reflected back to us. They can represent other people, but very rarely do they represent the person you're dreaming about themselves. It's more about a quality and characteristic of that person and how you relate to it. For example, I have a really good friend, one of my best friend from junior high and high school, and we're still friends today. When I have dreams about this person, he works in Hollywood, And very often when I dream about him, he's reflecting the creative aspect of myself. So I've had dreams where we're meeting and he's really encouraging me to just keep writing, you know? I had dreams like that for a while, and we would just meet up for lunch. I remember one dream in particular, we met up for lunch and we had this long lunch, and he just kept encouraging me, keep writing, keep doing this. And he was kind of like trying to encourage me and give me ideas. Well, let's break down the symbolism of this dream. So I dream about my friend, and so I have to ask, well, what does this person represent to me? Well, he works with scripts, he's creative, he tells stories, he makes movies, da, da, da. He's a creative person. That's the first thing I would say. Not only is he a creative person, he's a creative professional. We were eating lunch. Well, what is eating food? It's how we nourish our bodies, right? So I'm getting together with this part of myself, the creative part of myself, and we're nourishing. I'm nourishing that part of myself. We're having food together. We're eating together. We are nourishing, in this sense, the creative part of myself. So there's some symbolism there. A really simple dream from my own personal experience. You can see how kind of the context of the dream can give us some information, and it's very fitting that in that dream that he would be encouraging me to keep writing and to keep going and to keep giving me ideas, because we were there nourishing, our bodies. We were there eating, we were feeding it. So what did that dream inspire me to do? It inspired me to stick to my writing and to keep going and to keep exploring, to keep pushing, because eventually that ended up turning into, a second book. So when we look at the people in the dreams, the first thing we'll look at is, well, what does this person represent to me? Are they kind, sincere, and humble? Okay, so I'm looking at that part of myself that is kind, sincere, and humble. And then, well, what is happening in the dream? Well, this person was there, and they were being chased by animals. And I was really scared for them. And I was afraid they were going to get caught. And there was these animals chasing them, and right as they were about to get caught, they climbed over the fence, and then they were safe. Well, this could be reflecting back to us. We got to ask the symbol, well, what are the animals? What kind of animals were they? Oh, they were dogs. Okay, well, what are dogs? Well, dogs are, they're instinctual, right? They are supposed to be, they're domesticated, right? They're domesticated, but these ones are aggressive. So this could be like instinctual, aggressive qualities, right? And they're chasing this kind, humble, sincere part of ourselves. Well, how do you feel in relationship to something that's going on in your life? Maybe you just maybe there's a group of people that you feel like are threatening you, right? But maybe you had this dream and you were in a business park, which you're like, this is so weird. I was in this business park, and there was these dogs, and they started chasing this person who, they're kind and they're sincere and they're humble, and they were running and running, running until they almost got caught, but they got over the fence and they were safe. So business park. Well, what is a business park? Well, it's business park, business, work. So then I might ask, well, are there people that you feel that are maybe aggressive or threatening, and intruding on or scaring this part of yourself that's just kind and sincere and humble? Do you feel like there's aggression, kind of pursuing that part of yourself in your workspace? Because the business park kind of sets the environment, right? So we could break down all those symbols and look at them, and I could offer that up, and we might go, oh yeah, actually, I've been working on this team project, and it's like every time I try to share an idea, these people get on me about it, and they're telling me that I'm wrong, and and it doesn't feel good. So it's like we can use dreams like these and the symbols and the context, and just by looking at not just the people, but even the symbolism, and saying, well, what are the first few impressions I'm getting about this? What is that telling me? So first, when we look at people, we look at aspects of ourselves. But the second piece then too is also, well, influences. Like we could be referring to a person that embodies these similar kinds of characteristics and qualities. So those are some of the ways in which we can figure out what is this pointing to. The only way we get there, though, is by analyzing the symbols together. The context really matters, because again, in some cases, a person is going to reflect a part of ourselves back to us, and in other cases it could be reflective of a person who embodies those same kind of qualities and characteristics. You might be having stuff going on with a good friend and that good friend isn't necessarily going to pop up in the dream. Um, as far as whatever's happening, if there's a dynamic that you're working on or something that you're working through, you might end up seeing an image of a person might come through in the dream that represents the qualities and characteristics of that person that you're really struggling with. So you might be going through a tough time with a friend who just like will not open up about what's going on, and you're not going to dream about them. It's just in this particular case, like, or in this instance right now, they're really shut down. So you dream about someone else who the first thing that comes to mind when you think of them is like, oh, that person's like really quiet. They don't talk about their feelings, da 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 da. And then you can look at the dream and say, okay, well, who am I? Is this reflecting? Like, no, I'm not really have an issue with that. But, so-and-so, I've just felt like lately they haven't been opening up. They feel quiet, da da da. And then you can take that within the context of the dream, break it down, and maybe get some information and some guidance about how you can, show up in that dynamic, or maybe it's just reflecting back the truth of what's going on. Maybe it's something that you've been oblivious to, and it brings to your awareness, oh yeah, actually they've been really quiet and they've been really reserved, and maybe I'm going to check in on them. Maybe I'm just going to see how they're doing. That's one of the ways in which, this is another way dreams can really be helpful. So when it comes to people, ask yourself, what are the first 3 qualities and characteristics that I think of when I see this person? And then, given the context of the dream, look at, is this reflecting a part of myself back at me, which is always a healthy question to ask. And then the next step could be, well, is this reflecting something about somebody I'm in relationship to, or a dynamic I'm in or experiencing right now? And is there information here for me to look at? So that's how we could use people, or look at and view people in our dreams. But that's a start. This is not by any means, this is not the be all end all of the dream analysis. It's just to help get you going, to help kind of get you on track. Is there anything else I want to mention? Oh, houses. We'll talk about some really quick houses, buildings, talk through the symbols. I'm going to, just so that you can start to develop your own language and figure it out for yourself. Ask yourself, well, what does that mean to me? So let's look at houses. Let's talk about the front yard. Let's walk through the house, basically. Well, the front yard, what is the front yard of a house? It's the front facing area, the public facing area of the place that we call home. So that's something to consider. If something's happening in the front yard, it's going to be something to do, because the houses tend to do with the self. Our house tends to do with our self in a very fundamental, a foundational way. The front yard might be activities and things going on that are public facing. And then when we go into the house, the living room is where we congregate with people. It's where we hang out. It's where we connect. We commune with people. We relate. The kitchen is where we cook our food. So this could be related to nourishment, how we nourish ourselves, both in a physical sense, but also like in an energetic or an emotional, spiritual and mental sense. If we go into the bathrooms, well, what happens in the bathrooms? That's where we relieve ourselves. It's where we get rid of our waste. And so if you're going number 1, it's emotional because it's water. And if we're doing number 2, it's solid. This is more like wasteful stuff, heavy stuff, dense stuff. So some basic things to look at when you're analyzing dreams. In the bathrooms is where we get rid of, where we release. And there's significance to, is it number 1 or number 2? Again, if it's water, if it's emotions, it's liquid, it's emotional stuff. And if it's solid, it's that heavy stuff, dense stuff. So something to look at. If we're in the house and we're downstairs versus upstairs, well, what's upstairs? Well, upstairs is the next level up. It's a higher level up. The first level would be kind of like our conscious level. And if we go down into the basement, this is like subconscious stuff. So you could be subconscious in the basement, conscious level, and then higher mind when we're upstairs, the higher we go. If you're in a multi-story building, a lot of times we're talking about higher perspectives, different levels up, going higher and higher and higher, depending on the context of the dream. It could be spiritually related, it could be work related, it could be home. If you're in a home and you've got 4 levels, well, we're talking about, really these very, very multi-layered aspect of yourself, but we're working on higher and higher mind, higher and higher perspective. If we go into the backyard, it is sort of public facing, right? Because it might be where we have parties, where we gather, where we hang out, but it is more intimate. So in front yard, all the neighbors can see us. Anybody who drives by can see what's going on, right? But in the backyard, we usually have a fence or some walls up, and it's a little bit more private. So it's kind of like that public-private area where we relate. It's more intimate. So if we find ourselves gathering in the backyard versus the front yard might be gatherings that are related to public-facing things related to the self, but the backyard might be stuff that's a little more intimate, a little bit more private. So this would be, that smaller circle, that more intimate circle, and the dream might be reflecting something going on in that part of our lives. So that might be helpful to kind of get things going too. Kind of like I said earlier, when we think about symbols, just kind of talk through what they represent in a very not literal, like not in a literal way. Just thinking about more symbolically, like kind of what happens. This is why this really does help expands our language and expands our intuition, because again, we move out of like concrete, rigid ideas and into more like energy and essence and the abstract part of our being and intelligence that does hold a lot of, at least in my experience, it holds a lot of information and can provide a lot of healing for us as well. So that's the house. The house very often has to do with the self. Our car, transportation, a lot of times has to do with getting where we're going. A skateboard and a car are very different. Skateboards, little 4 wheels, you're in it, you propel it by yourself. It's very youthful, right? It's rebellious. It's not conventional. Whereas a car is very traditional. It is kind of like your vehicle and how you individually like move through the world, because that's what happens when we get in a vehicle or we use transportation. We're moving. We're on our journey. We're going to another destination. So there's movement there. That's why it's different than a house. Again, house has to do with ourself as like the foundation, but then when we get in the car or we're on some sort of transportation, how do we move through the world as an individual on the car? But if we're on a skateboard, it's very useful. It's kind of rebellious. It's unconventional. If we're on public transit, then we're talking about moving through the world with, other people, with our neighbors, with our community, stuff like that. So that feels about where I want to go with this. So think about that stuff. This is to get the wheels turning, and to turn the process over to you, and to start to just look at and analyze your dreams within the context of these are symbols and metaphors for something that's going on in my life, and they can provide some insight and an honest reflective mirror as to what's going on. So take a look at it. Let me know what you think. Follow the prompts connected to this video. Like I said, set the intention to dream, remember your dreams, keep a dream journal, and just slowly start to work with this. Like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, this could be a lifelong process, and you'll probably go in and out of phases because sometimes dream life gets really active. All this information's coming in. Sometimes it scales back a little bit, and it's just the ebb and flow of things. That's at least been my experience. But I hope this is helpful, and I hope that it helps you start to look at your dreams and consciousness in a new light, because it's a very, very useful dimension of our awareness and our intelligence that I think could be very helpful in helping us find our loving truth and who we are in this world, and how do we show up in a way that's authentic and real, but in alignment with our soul, our values, and our mission and purpose here. So, all right, my friend, that's it. Good night, good sleeps. Have good dreams, have enlightening dreams, and please communicate if you feel called, anything that you're learning and any insights that you're gaining on the way. I'm happy to be here to guide and shepherd some of that journey. Love breaking down dreams, so feel free to share them with the group, and we can all kind of tackle it together, hive mind, and figure out maybe some of the symbolism and what it might be reflecting back to you. It's a fun process. So it started with my family, at least on my journey, and I'd love to expand this out to my soul family, which you're a part of. So let's keep growing and learning and evolving together. And I look forward to seeing where this takes us. All right, my friend, when you're ready, click yourself into the next section, and we're going to dive into doing some healing meditation and some energy healing on ourselves. A really powerful practice that I can't wait to share with you. Adios.